Hello, board gamers! I'm Ryan Sturm, co-designer of this game, Trade on the Tigris, also former co-host of the Ludology podcast and host of the How to Play podcast, which is no longer running. I just got back from Gen Con and had a lot of fun demoing my game. Very exciting to demo, my first design here, Trade on the Tigris, and I had so much fun teaching it to all the people there. I said, you know what? I should put together a final How to Play podcast and teach people how to play this game. And I figure, I should get into this video thing the kids are doing these days. So this is a special one-time only video episode on how to play Trade on the Tigris. It's for 3 to 6 players, really great at 5 to 6 players, takes just about an hour to play. So let's dive into it and learn how to play Trade on the Tigris. Welcome to Trade on the Tigris. You are a city-state in ancient Mesopotamia. You'll guide the economy, religion, government, and culture of your civilization in order to be the greatest city-state on the Tigris River by the end of the game. This greatness is measured in the traditional historical manner of victory points. The civilization who accumulates the most points will win the game. Trade on the Tigris is played over 5 rounds. Now the core of the game is that in each turn you'll collect some trade good cards and trade them with the other players in an open 5-minute timed trading phase. Then you'll turn in sets of these trade good cards in order to score victory points and also to progress on 2 tracks which represent the religion and government of your civilization. Progress on the religion and government tracks will score you victory points at the end of the game, but also they will give you access to more powerful development cards that give you special abilities. After 5 rounds, the player who is the most successful trader by managing to balance collecting sets of goods and progressing their religion, government, and culture, and all the while avoid barbarian invasions and disasters, will score the most points and win the game. So let's dive into it. So the heart of this game is all from these trade good cards. So we need to talk a lot about these. First, we're going to talk about how the trade good cards work. First, how do you get the trade good cards? Well, at the beginning of the game, you're going to get a player mat in one of 6 wonderful civilizations, but you're also going to get these 6 starting cards. You're going to get 5 starting worker cards and 1 starting merchant card. And they have a basic ability there on the bottom. It says production, and there's a little icon there. The symbol for basic goods is a little hut, and the symbol for the imported goods is a little blue boat. And so at the very beginning of the game, everybody has 5 little huts and 1 little boat. And so that's going to produce for you 5 basic goods and 1 import good. Now the numbers of those goods might change a little bit in just a second, and I'll explain why later. But just know for now, you'll probably have, 4 to 7 goods cards in your hands to trade. And then you're going to, after you trade them, you're going to turn those cards in for points. So let's look at those trade good cards. So the trade goods have a top and a bottom. Let's look at some of the basic ones. So if we're looking at this card, it's a goat here. The important part is to look over here on the right-hand side of the card. It has a track. And that track indicates how many victory points that card is worth. The victory points are represented by coins in this game. Coins are points, points are victory points. So you'll notice from this chart, if I just have 1 goat, on the bottom of the track it says 0. This track is also on your player aid, by the way, in beige there in the middle. And if you go up the track, it means the bigger the set, the more points that it is worth. For example, if I have a pair of goats, now it's worth 1 victory point. 3 goats is worth 2 victory points. And you notice if I get 4 goats, it jumps up to 4 victory points. So getting more goats is good. Pretty simple. So you're trading and you're trying to get more of the same kind of good. But if we just did that, well, that wouldn't be very interesting, just trying to get a lot of the same kinds of goods. It wouldn't take me 6 years to design there with Jeff Engelstein. We wanted a game with a little bit more meat to it. Therefore, we had this idea that when you're trading goods, you're not just trading, the physical goods, but your interactions with these different city-states is going to bring in different ideas to your civilizations. And the idea is that by trading them, they are going to influence the religion and government of your civilization. And this influence is represented on the bottoms of the cards. On the bottoms of the cards, there's 4 main icons that will likely appear. There are 2 governments, a democracy government icon there, and a dictator government icon. And there are 2 religions. There's 2 gods that we could become devoted to in this game. There are historical religious figures, actually. Asher and Marduk, represented by sort of the red dragon and the blue little eagle symbol here. And when you're trading for these sets, you also want to collect sets of the bottoms of the goods. You want to focus on one type of government and one type of religion. There's no value judgment here. If you want to be a crazed dictator, well, you go for it. But whichever kind of government religion you pick, you really want to try to get a lot of that symbol. Because basically how that works is you'll trade in for the sets on the top, but you also trade in for the things on the bottom. And if you have those icons on the bottom of the card, they will move you one step towards that on the track. There are government and religion tracks in the center of the board, and you have a lovely little meeple there, a Mesopotamian meeple, and so I am calling these Mesopotiples. And you're going to move these Mesopotiples to the right or the left, depending on which of these icons you got. So let's say I got 2 of these dictator icons. At the end of when I'm turning in my cards, I get to move 2 steps down that government track. And you'll notice on the track, it goes from now I've moved from a level 0 government to a level 1 indicated on the bottom there of that track. Hooray! Who cares? Well, I'll tell you why you care. There's 2 main reasons. First, at the end of the game, you're going to try to get really far down there, and you'll notice if you get most of the way down that track, the further you get down there, you get more and more victory points. So you get those victory points at the end of the game. But more importantly, at the beginning of each round, you're going to draw development cards that will give you special abilities. And the cards that you get to draw, there's actually 7 decks for each for the religion and 7 decks for the government. And the stack of cards you get to draw from depends on your positions on the track. At the beginning of the game, we're going to draw from these level 0 stacks, and they're fine. But if I get to level 1, then that deck is inherently more powerful and the abilities are more interesting than the cards in the level 0 deck. So by getting down those tracks, it's going to give me more powerful abilities that I can use to sort of give me tools to get more victory points. Now, how these government and religion icons work is, well, this democracy and dictator, they are opposing ideologies. So if I have 2 dictator icons at the end of the trade phase, they're great. I'm going to move down the 2 steps. Now, if I have 1 dictator icon and 1 democracy icon, I bet you can guess what will happen. I will not move at all. So that's something you need to consider as you're trading these types of goods. The 2 gods are also ideological opposites. To give the game a little bit of character, we decided that Marduk is sort of an aggressive, militant, xenophobic, going to burn the heathens religion, that red dragon religion there. And the Asher religion, sort of the blue eagle religion, is like the friends and flowers and let's all gather around the campfire and sing Kumbaya religion. And so, you'll decide which one of those you want to be and try to work your way down that track. Same deal. I want to get maybe 2 Marduk, because if I get a Marduk and an Asher, I'm going to go nowhere. If I get 3 Marduk and 1 Asher, then I move 2 spots towards Marduk. So that's how those trade good cards work. You try to get sets of the same type of good on the top, but you're also trying to get the same kind of government and the same kind of religion. You want to get that because you go further down these tracks, and moving down these tracks gives you access to more powerful development cards. So next, let's talk about brief overview of the phases of a round. So the game's played in 5 rounds. Each round has 5 phases, and they're called the development, production, trade, mercantile, and civic phase. Each of these phases is pretty straightforward. In the development phase, we're going to get some of these special abilities. You're going to draw 2 religion cards and keep 1 to play, and the cards have a special ability on it. And you're also going to draw 2 government cards and keep 1 of them. So in total, you'll draw 4 and keep 2, just making sure you get 1 religion and 1 government. And again, if you're further down the tracks in later rounds, you're going to get to draw from the different stacks, the level 1 stack for Asher, for example, or the level 2 stack for democracy, that will be more powerful. Then we go to the production phase, and that's simply you're going to draw goods. So for example, if you didn't alter your production, you'll just get 5 basic goods, 1 import good. Then it's the trade phase. We have this timed open 5-minute trading phase where we're trading. Then we have the mercantile phase, and basically all this means we're going to turn in our goods cards and get stuff. And the last phase is the civic phase. Some of the development cards you'll get fire off an ability every turn at the end of the round during the civic phase, and that's when that will happen. And we just do that 5 times, and at the end, the person with the most points wins. So the first thing you're going to do in this game is you're going to get development cards. You're going to draw 2 religion cards, 2 government cards, and keep 1. And these give you different special abilities. So let's talk about some common types of these development cards. So the most basic type of card is a card called Immigrants. And what this card does is, as I said, you start with 5 starting workers, and they each produce a basic good, so you're going to get 5 basic goods. If you take this, now you're going to get 6 basic goods. Hooray! I have more basic goods. The next common card is called Exports. In this case, you're going to actually discard one of your starting workers, so you're going to go from 5 to 4. But in exchange, you're going to get another boat icon. So most players will have 1 import good to start the game. If you take this special ability, you'll get 2 import goods. So basically what you've done is you've upgraded one of your goods from a basic good to an import good. The reason you want to do that is the import goods are inherently more valuable. If you look at your player aid, or if you look at the goods themselves, you'll notice the basic goods use this beige track. The imported goods use these purple tracks. So the other kind of development card you might get is a Resolve Immediately development card. For example, there's a card here called Powerful Ruler. And what this does is it moves you 2 spots down the government track toward Dictator, as shown on the icons there. Now, so it's a one-time benefit, and that's what you get. But don't throw that card away. You're going to take all these development cards, you're going to play in a little tableau in front of you. And even though you got the immediate effect, you didn't get everything from this card. Most of the cards in the game, in the upper corners of the cards, have icons. And those icons symbolize development of your civilization in some different categories. And the reason you want those is future developments will likely refer to having these cards. For example, you might have a card that scores you points if you have a military icon. Another common type of development is the civic development. For example, we have the Authority of the King civic. And you notice the last one gave you 2 spots just all at once and immediately. Well, the civic icon, you don't get it till the end of the round, but you get it at the end of every round. There are also ones that are colored orange because those are mercantile developments. An example of that is a brewery. And so the mercantile phase is when you turn in cards. So this one, when you turn in barley is worth more for you. And it says this round, but actually this stays out the whole game. So you get to use this. So barley is always worth more to you than it is to other players. And the last kind of development card that I need to talk about is trade card developments. A good example of this is the Power of the People development. And so this gives you a 1 move towards democracy, but it also says produce, gain 5, and the 5's in a little white box. And that doesn't mean gain 5 points or gain 5 tokens or anything like that. That actually means gain trade card number 5. So there's a stack of trade cards in the game. I think there's like 50 or so of them, and they're each unique. And the Power of the People one in particular is a card with a democracy arrow on it. And what that is that's another thing that you can trade during the trade phase. So when we're trading goats and fish and stuff, I could trade someone one of these democracy arrows. Maybe they give me a clay for it. And so I got a clay for having that. They'll take that. When they play their cards, they'll resolve it, and they'll move down the democracy track. But the cool thing is then that trade card number 5, in the production phase comes back to me. And now I can trade that card again to someone else. So it keeps producing this, and I'll get to trade it 5 times, and hopefully I'll get some value from trading it to different players. Now, they're called trade cards. They're not called keep them and get them yourself cards. So what that means is if you keep them, it says right on the card, not for producer. So if you just sit on the card, you can't activate it yourself. We did that purposefully, so you actually wanted to trade them. So the value then you get out of them is from trading them. If you do not trade them, they are not worth anything. But all these trade cards are different, and as you get down level 1, level 2, you can get some more powerful trade cards that other players are going to want. Some of them, for example, will prevent negative effects that you, in fact, are causing. There's ones like give everybody a barbarian unless they have this protection card. So you can trade this protection card so someone is prevented from getting that barbarian. What do barbarians do? I'll talk about that later. But those are the major kinds of developments. Now, so we jump into the production phase. You'll pass out the cards, the basic good cards. Everybody will have like 4 or 5 or 6 of them. You'll pass out the import goods. Most players will have 1 or 2, depending on which of those developments they picked. And then you're ready to jump into the trading phase. All right, trading. This is the heart of the game. This is what you came here for, to trade some goods, to wheel and deal, and make some dough. So how do you do it? So it's a 5-minute open trading phase. There's none of this turn stuff like in Catan. Usually use the whole 5 minutes, but if it all peters out before that, you can all agree to finish trading early. So just some rules of thumb. What are you trying to do? Well, in round 1, focus on maybe getting 1 set of like at least 3 cards, because 3 cards is pretty good. You get 2 points for the 3 cards. A set of 4 would be even better because you get the bonus point there, 4 points. But also really even more important than that is to get to level 1 of something. Level 1 Asher, Marduk, Democracy, or Dictator. And you do that by getting 2 or more of one particular icon, and do not get the reverse icon, or don't spend that. So how do you trade that? You trade it most of the trades generally in the game start by trading from the tops of the cards. For example, like I have a goat, who wants a goat, or I'm looking for silver, something like that. You could talk about the bottom, but you might not want to, and here's why. When you trade, if someone says, hey, I'm really looking for a goat, and you say, I got a goat, and you give them a card, and they're like, that's not a goat, that's a fish. You liar. You're not allowed to do that. That is against the rules. However, the bottom of the card is a whole nother story. You can tell the truth. Let's say it's a Dictator Goat. One of my favorite cards in the game, by the way, is the Dictator Goat. I mean, who doesn't love a Dictator Goat? Almost equaled by Democracy Fish. I mean, it's sustainably raised seafood. I mean, you know why they like Democracy, right? They learned it in school. Ba-dum-bum. Shh. So if I have a Dictator Goat, and he's not actually a Dictator Goat. I mean, thematically, I got to back up here. Really what's happening here is that you're trading a goat, and the person that you're trading with is spreading ideas of this powerful dictator, and that's influencing the people in your civilization. But it's kind of fun to imagine a Dictator Goat. So let's say I have a Dictator Goat. I can tell everybody I have a Dictator Goat. Anybody want a Dictator Goat? But what I'm not allowed to do is actually show them that it is a Dictator Goat. They have to believe that it's a Dictator Goat. Because I can either withhold that information, or I could be totally lying. It could be a Democracy Goat. So in order to make the bluffing aspect work, you are not allowed to show the fronts of the cards to people before you commit to a trade with them. So some people trade in different ways. Some people like to not trade the bottoms at all. Some people like to just try to trade the bottoms and hope they get the right thing. Some people might want to ask you what kind of a fish it is, and you could choose to tell them to lie or say, it's a surprise fish. See what you get. Get the box of fish, open it up, and see what happens. So that adds a little bit of fun to the trading. Now, this is a very open trading phase. You can trade goods cards, you can trade basics for imports. You might want to do like 2 basics for 1 import because of the value discrepancy. Use that chart to make sure you're getting a fair trade. You can trade those trade cards you got from the trade card developments. You can trade barbarians. You can trade culture. People are like, how would you trade barbarians? Well, easy. What you do is you'd say, I will give this goat if you also take a barbarian. You can trade 3 for 1. You can say, will you take this Dictator Goat, please? And if someone agrees, then then they can take it. Later in the game, you're going to have those victory point coins, and those are a great currency to trade with also. And turn 1, you don't have any of those yet. So those are the rules for trading. The last thing to keep in mind as you're trading is that on your player mat, you have a spot there called Warehouse. And there's 3, a little 1, 2, 3 there. You can carry over 3 goods from round to round. So why do you want to do that? There's two main reasons you want to warehouse goods. Usually because you want to get a bigger set. For example, say I only have one fish, it's not worth any points. Maybe I want to keep it. Unless maybe there's Asher on the bottom and I'm Asher, maybe I do want to spend it. On the other hand, the other reason you don't want to, you may not want to spend a goods card is because let's say I'm an Asher person and there's a Marduk symbol on it, and I want to just like hold on to that and hope I can trade that with someone else later. Because what happens is any of the three, and you don't have to warehouse anything, by the way. You can warehouse 0, 1, 2, or 3 cards. It's up to you. But any cards you do not warehouse, you're going to play and fully resolve. You'll resolve both the tops and the bottoms, even if you don't want to. There's no, I'm just going to throw these cards away. That's not a thing. You must play both the tops and the bottoms. Now, the last rule you have to know about trading, now, this is just an optional bonus rule coming from your friend, the co-designer here of Trade on the Tigris. Once everybody's all set, when you set the timer, you ask if everybody's ready to go, and just before you hit the timer button, I really recommend you say in full throat, "It's time to trade on the Tigris!" Like that. You know, you can alternate who says it. You can all say it in unison. You can just be the one weirdo who says it, and then we'll say, "Are you going to do that 5 times?" And be like, "Yes, I am going to do that 5 times." And then you just wrap it up with the Mercantile and Civic. It's a good idea for first-time players to have the teacher of the game show an example of how to resolve a set of cards. So any card is not warehoused. Let's take an example. Let's say I have 3 fish, 2 clay, and 1 goat that I'm spending. You know, the 3 fish are worth 2 VP. 2 clay is worth 1, the goat's worth nothing, so that's worth a total of 3 coins. So I take 3 coins there from the pile. You'll notice the coins are double-sided, and so make sure you get the correct denomination first, because they're all the same color, they're the same as the ones. But once you get them, turn them to the blank side down. Culture and Barbarians, by the way, are open. Your amount of coins victory points, after you announce how many you've got for that round, your total is secret, but everyone should announce how many they've gotten. And then after I count up the points on the top, then I usually resolve the bottoms. Say, for example, I had 2 Dictator cards total and moved 2 spots, advanced to level 1, awesome. Maybe I had an Asher and a Marduk card. That's going to actually move me nowhere. There are also cards I haven't talked about. They're titled Prosperity cards. These cards give you 1 additional coin, but they also give you a Barbarian token. There are also cards that give you Culture, and you just take a Culture token for each one of those that you have. And then some of the cards don't just have like a river with a canoe on it. And one of my favorite jokes when I was demoing this was when someone would say, "What does this canoe do?" I say, "That is the canoe of doom. You lose the game." And then I said, "No, not really. It doesn't do anything." You know, when you demo the game about 15 times, you got to find ways to mix it up. So you're going to show how to resolve one person's set of cards. Then you can sort of let everybody resolve them on their own and help as necessary. Then you move on to the Civic phase, which is really simple in round 1. All it does is anybody who selected one of those pink abilities, they would fire off now. So you did it. You made it through round 1. Now, round 1's, it's good. It's kind of a warm-up round. But in round 2, things start to get really interesting. So let me tell you some of the changes in round 2. So first of all, hopefully players are not all getting level 0s. Show them that, you know, you'll draw 2 and keep 1 from the correct level that you're at there on the track. Now, one item of note that I haven't mentioned yet is you can actually fall off the edge of these idea tracks. You know, like too much of any idea is going to be a bad thing. Even democracy. So you get level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3. If you get all to the way to the end, there's a spot there at the end called bureaucracy. And if you end up on that space, you'll see the level drops down from level 3 to level 1, and the points drop down. So even once you get to the end of the tracks, there's a balancing act of staying right there on level 3 and not on level 2 and not on that bureaucracy space. case. So just keep that in mind. All right, here are the interesting things that start happening in round 2. There are 5 disaster cards that get shuffled into the import deck. They are removed before the game begins, and they get shuffled in round 2, and show them to the players before you do that. They are identifiable. They have a little volcano icon that they're a disaster. Obviously, this is a case where you would not want to reveal what is on the bottoms of the cards. The second and third interesting thing that happens starting in round 2 and in each future round is that at the very end of the round, if you look at the round track, it has a couple icons on that. And what those icons represent is that at the end of the round, we're going to have a barbarian invasion and a golden age. And what happens is after everything's done, including resolving all civic abilities, we ask, okay, who has the most barbarians? And you count up your barbarians. Say it's 6, 7, 3, 5, and somebody has 7. Okay, so they have the most. And what happens is to that person is barbarians invade their civilization. So they lose victory points equal to the number of barbarians that they have. So, for example, they had 7, so they would discard 7 coins or victory points. The only good news about that is after the barbarians raid you and steal all your money, then they're sort of quelled. So you get to discard down to 2 barbarian tokens. And now the person who was laughing at you, who had 6 barbarian tokens, starts to get a little worried. It's important to note that all players with the most, so if there were 2 players tied with 7, they would each suffer the penalty. And conversely, the golden age happens, you want to happen by having the most culture. So the player with the most culture is going to receive a bonus based on the round, indicated by the icon on the turn track there. Usually what happens is whoever has the most culture is going to get a bonus development card. They do the same thing. They discard down to 2 culture, so it makes it hard for them to have a golden age the next round. But then they get to pick up 2 development cards from the level indicated on the track. In round 2, they get a level 1 development card, and they can pick from any 2 decks they want. So that's how the Golden Age works. And as it goes on, in round 3, Golden Age is a level 2 development, and then in round 4, it's a level 3 development. At the end of the game, there's no more developing. Developing doesn't really mean anything, so you get 7 victory points instead. So that's it. We're ready to dive into round 2 and dive into the rest of the rounds. You know all the rules of the game. You're going to play 5 rounds. Your final victory point total is the number of coins that you have. Flip those up. Plus you can add coins, or you can take coins for your position on the 2 tracks. Plus many of the, not many, but a few of the development cards have end of game point bonuses, so you can take those bonuses at that time. And the player with the most victory points is the winner. A typical winning score is around 80 or so. If you're really kicking some butt, you can break 100. So that's it. That's how you play Trade on the Tigris. I hope you enjoyed that explanation. If you want to learn more about Trade on the Tigris, you can listen to the full audio episode available from my How to Play podcast, which will have a little more of an introduction as well as a little strategy section at the end. But also, if you're interested in game design, this was a public design project Jeff and I did on the Ludology podcast. We did this design all online starting the year 2012, and there's about 10 episodes that track the progress of this design. And in a few months here in September 2018, we're going to record a final episode, sort of giving an overview of the evolution of this game and just sort of the process of being a first-time game designer for myself and what it's like to go through that full game design process and how this game changed. So be sure to check that out on the Ludology podcast. But for now, thanks for watching. I hope you have fun trading on the Tigris. See ya.